Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. My name is Brittany Knowles. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the Learning and Development Specialist here at Career Circle, where skills go to work. I have brown hair coiffed into a bob. I'm wearing a nice purple regal shirt, along with clear, cat-eyed, wide-brimmed glasses and a smile. I'm really excited to be here today for today's session, AI skills that make you stand out to employers. We are currently recording this webinar to ensure accessibility for all participants. If you'd like to enable closed captionings, click more on the bottom right of your screen, then select captions and then show captions. A recording and all resources mentioned today will be emailed to you after the event. I repeat, because we always get this question. A recording and all of the resources from today will be emailed to you after the event. For IBM Skills Build learners, today's session counts as a learning activity. Oh, so excited. If you are one of those individuals, if you have started taking those courses, you're going to want to make sure that you mark it complete after we wrap up. My colleague Jess is dropping the link in the chat right now. If you haven't set up your IBM Skills Build account yet, it's completely free. Free, Free, with over 1,000 courses in the catalog, including the AI courses we'll be referencing today. We'll recap the link at the end, and it'll also be in your post-event email. Before we jump in, I'd love to hear from you. Drop your answer in the chat. Have you ever used an AI tool in your job search? Yes, no, or not sure where to start? We'd love to know where everyone is coming from. So I'm seeing a yes, I see a yes, I see a yes, I see you, yes, I see a no, okay. That is awesome. So we have the gamut here. We have some that have started utilizing it, and we have some that haven't. So we have a broad range of learners to be able to obtain this information. And I'm so excited about how engaged you all are in the chat. I love it. Snaps for that. So we have a fired up group. I love it. I love it. So now let me introduce our speaker. Her name is Eliza, and she is the Senior Technical Program Manager at IBM Research. She's here today to share a practical look at how AI prompting works, why it matters for job seekers right now, and how you can start using it today. Eliza, welcome, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I love your energy. I'm not sure I can compete with you, but I love it. So as mentioned, my name is Eliza Hesching. I work at IBM Research, where I have the opportunity to work on the development of AI technologies and to see how AI technologies are being used to solve real-world problems and to help people work more effectively. One of the ideas that we'll discuss in today's webinar is something called human-centered AI. Human-centered AI means using AI to help people, not to replace people. It's the idea that AI should support human decision-making, human creativity, and human productivity. For example, AI can help you brainstorm your interview answers, but AI shouldn't decide whether those answers are authentic or represent your real-world experience. AI can help you improve your resume, but AI should not invent your experience that you don't have. AI can help you analyze a job description, but you still need to decide whether or not that role is a good fit for you. The bottom line is that AI works best when people remain in control of the final output or of what is finally delivered. That's what human-centered AI means. So with that in mind, let's start with the basics. So what is AI? Before we move on, I want to make one quick point about AI. Many people think that AI is something completely new, but most of us have been using AI for years. For example, when a navigation app such as Google Maps or Waze suggests a faster route, or when streaming services like Netflix recommends content, or when email filters spam messages, that's usually AI that's working behind the scenes. What's different today is that tools like ChatGPT or Copilot allow us to interact directly with AI. And that's what we're going to focus on during today's session. Specifically, we'll look at how you as job seekers can interact with AI to help you with your job search. So, if AI is becoming part of everyday work, what does that mean for jobs and skills? As technology changes, the skills that employers emphasize change as well. Today, many organizations are exploring how AI can improve productivity and efficiency. As a result, employers are increasingly interested in people who understand how to work effectively with AI. But that doesn't mean that traditional workplace skills are becoming less important. Organizations still need people who are able to communicate effectively and solve problems, think critically, collaborate with others, and exercise good judgment. In many ways, these skills become even more important as technology becomes more capable. The opportunity is not choosing between AI skills and human skills. The opportunity is learning how to combine the two. Let's take a look at some of the AI-related skills that employers are increasingly discussing. The good news is that most employers are not looking for everyone to become an AI engineer. That really wouldn't make sense. Instead, they're interested in people who know how to use AI effectively in their own work. When people see a list of AI-related skills, they sometimes assume that they need a technical background or a computer science degree. But for most roles, this is not the case. So let's look at some of these skills that you see here on this slide and break them down into plain English. So one of the terms that we see here is generative AI. And generative AI simply means that AI can create or generate content. So for example, AI would write text or create a summary for you, help draft an email, create a presentation, help organize ideas. And if you've used ChatGPT, which perhaps some of you had, or Copilot or one of the other tools, you've already used generative AI. Another term is prompting. Prompting simply means learning how to ask AI good questions. Think about the difference between saying to AI, help me plan a good vacation, or I have 5 days in Italy, I enjoy hiking, I enjoy going to museums, and I need a friendly budget itinerary. The second prompt gives much better instructions to the AI tool, and usually it will give you much better results. So better prompts produce better results, and we'll see this later in our session. Another term that you see here is data literacy. Data literacy sounds very technical, but it really just means being able to understand and use information to make decisions. For example, reading reports, interpreting charts, identifying trends, asking good questions about information. And most jobs today involve data in one way or another. Another term that we see here is responsible AI. Responsible AI means using AI thoughtfully and ethically. For example, checking the facts that come back as an output from AI, or protecting personal information, being careful about the information that you feed into AI, not inventing experience on a resume. That's being ethical AI, or recognizing that AI can make mistakes. These are all examples of responsible AI. Understanding the basics of AI. When I said earlier that employers want people who understand the basics of AI, I didn't mean understanding the mathematics behind AI. We don't all have to understand the mathematics of how AI works. What I meant was things like understanding what AI does well, understanding where AI makes mistakes, how to write effective prompts, how to evaluate the output from AI, and how to use AI responsibly. These are skills that almost anyone can learn. So if you're wondering if you need to become a programmer to benefit from AI, the answer is no. What employers value are people who know how to use AI effectively while continuing to apply human judgment. So now let's move on from the theory, all of this theoretical discussion that we've had, to practice. And this is where AI becomes more practical. Today, we'll focus on 4 ways that AI can help you. Number 1, tailoring your resume. Number 2, finding jobs that fit your skills. Number 3, preparing for interviews. And number 4, writing networking and outreach messages. And instead of using random examples, we'll follow a single job seeker throughout the rest of today's session. And the job seeker that we'll follow is someone named Brianna. We'll look at her resume shortly, but I'll give you some background for now. Brianna, this Brianna that we'll be following, she has 5 years of experience supporting executives, coordinating travel, managing calendars, preparing reports, communicating with vendors, and helping office operations run smoothly. Now, Brianna was looking at some job boards, and she identified an administrative assistant position with Bluegrass Medical Group that she found interesting. Throughout the rest of today's session, we'll use AI to help this Brianna throughout her entire job search journey. We'll look at how AI can help her understand her own skills, evaluate a job opportunity, and improve her resume, prepare for an interview, and develop a strategy for her job, for searching for a job. That way, you'll see not only what AI can do, but also how all of these pieces fit together in a real-world job search. Now, before we jump into the demo, I want to share a few important principles that will help you get more value from AI. So let's look at that quickly. The first thing I want to tell you is that there are many AI tools that are available today, and you may have heard of some of them, and you may have used some of them also, like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Claude, and there are many other tools as well. But for today's demonstration, I'm intentionally focusing on free tools. And that way, each of you can immediately try these techniques on your own after today's webinar. It's also important for you to understand that you do not need to learn every AI tool. Once you learn these skills, they generally transfer from one platform to another. One of the most important skills for you to learn is to ask good questions, as we were saying earlier, this concept of prompting. So it's important for you to learn how to ask AI good questions, and also how to evaluate the answers that you receive, the output from AI. Another important point is that AI should not be treated as the source of perfect answers. You should think of AI as a collaborator or as an assistant to you. Don't think of AI as the final decision maker. One of the biggest mistakes that people often make is taking the output of AI and using it exactly as it was generated. Whether it's a resume that you're working on, or a cover letter, or a networking message, maybe you're reaching out to someone, whatever output that you get from AI, Always review it carefully and make sure that it reflects your experience and your voice, very importantly, and your goals. Now, another thing that I often do is I often use multiple AI tools together, and you'll also see we'll do this later in the session. For example, I may ask Copilot to give me a first draft, and then I may ask ChatGPT to review the output of Copilot and suggest improvements. And this is similar to asking two different people, maybe two of your friends, for feedback on the same document that you wrote. One of your friends may notice something that the other friend missed. So the skill is not just using AI, the skill is also evaluating the output that AI gives you. AI works best when we use it to strengthen our thinking, not just to replace our thinking. So we shouldn't just like put our brain on hold and replace it with AI. We need to continue thinking. It's very important. And throughout our demo today, we'll use AI to analyze information and to generate ideas. But the human remains responsible for the final decisions. So with these principles in mind, let's look at what this looks like in practice. So we'll move now to the AI tools. So I have now Microsoft. What we're looking at now is called Microsoft Copilot. I don't know if any of you have used this tool before, but you can see Copilot here. And the first tool that I want to show you is prompting, the importance of asking questions. So we'll start, as I said, with Microsoft Copilot. And before we talk about resumes and networking and job searching, I want to teach you about prompting. And prompting, as I mentioned earlier, is simply the process of giving instructions to an AI tool. A prompt is just the question or the request that you give to AI. And one of the first lessons that people learn when they start using AI is that better prompts give better results. And many people think that AI works like magic. They type a few words into the tool and they don't get a useful answer, and they just conclude that the AI tool is not very good. But often the issue is that the instructions that they gave to the AI tool were just too vague, or they just weren't very good. Oh, now before I type anything into the tool, I want to point something out to you. I am actually right now what you call logged into Copilot, and you can see that down here. Let me move this a second, this pencil, but you can see that I'm logged in because you see this J down here, and you can see it says sign out. Now you can create a free account with any of these free tools. And the benefit of creating a free account is this way you can save all of the conversations or all of the chats that you have with the tool. And the benefit of that, so you can see I signed in, I created this account called Jabber Jabber, okay? I created that right before it, and I signed in before our session. That way I wouldn't have to waste time with our session signing in. But it's free to create an account, and it's free to sign in. And the benefit of signing in is that it saves all of the conversations that you have. And that way you can always go back to your conversation to see the history of your discussion that you had with Copilot or with ChatGPT. You can also do it with ChatGPT. And also, just to make you a little bit familiar with what's going on, you can open the sidebar by pointing here. It opens a sidebar. And now we're having a chat, but you can also have multiple different chats if there are different kinds of discussions. Now we're having a discussion about a job. Maybe you want to have a different chat about a vacation, for example. Then you would open, it makes sense to have a different chat, not to confuse the AI, but then you would just, click to have a new chat. But the benefit, as I said, about signing in is that it will save all of these different discussions. And if you're called away, you want to come back, that's the benefit of signing in. Anyway, so let's go back to this. So I'm going to close the sidebar, just pressing on this image here. to close it. It doesn't matter if you have it open or closed, but you just have a bigger window if you have it closed. And again, you can see that you're signed in because you see this letter here. So that way I know, because you can also go to Copilot and you don't have to sign in if you don't care. Maybe you just have a quick question to ask it and you don't care if it's saved. Anyway, so going back to this prompting that we were discussing. So as we said, it's important to have good prompts, because if you ask a good question, then you'll get a better answer. So let's say I put in a prompt and I just say, help me find a job. Okay. Now, so let's see. Now, there's nothing wrong with the response that it came back with. It said, what type of work are you looking for? What's the experience level? It came back with all these questions to me, but this answer that it gave me is not particularly useful. Now, why is it not useful? Because I didn't provide the AI with much information. It doesn't know who I am. It doesn't know what experience I have. It doesn't know what jobs I want. And, it doesn't know what kind of help I need. So let's try again. Now, this time I'll tell it, act as a career coach. I want to give it more information. To move to the next line, Shift Enter. Helping a job seeker named Brianna. Shift Enter, go to the next line. So I'm giving all of her experience. Shift Enter again to go to the next line. Now I'm telling AI exactly what I wanted to give us. Act as a career coach. I'm helping a job seeker named Brianna. She has more than 5 years of administrative experience supporting executives, coordinating travel, preparing reports, communicating with vendors, and managing calendars. Help identify her transferable skills, potential job titles she should consider, industries that value these skills, and a short action plan. Let's see what we get back. So this is what we get back this time. It's giving us her transferable skills, potential job titles for jobs she can look for, industries that value these skills, and a short action plan. So notice how much more information and how much more useful this response is. Now, it's not that I changed the AI tool. I'm using the exact same AI tool. All that I changed was the prompt, the instructions that I gave the tool. So when I'm working with AI, and when you're working with AI, you should think about four things: the role, the context, the goal, and the output. And what I mean by that is I gave in this new prompt, I'm going back up to it, I told it its role, and I gave it more context. I told it the goal, and I told it exactly what output I'm looking for. Okay? So now that we understand how to communicate with AI more effectively by using more effective prompts, let's meet Brianna, our job seeker. Okay. So as a first step, we're going to use AI to help us identify Brianna's skills. As I mentioned earlier, throughout our entire demo, so throughout the rest of our session, we're going to follow Brianna. And before I upload anything into AI, let's take a quick look at her resume to understand her better. So this is her resume. Don't worry about reading every word. It's not important for you to read every word of her resume. I just want you to get a sense of who she is. Okay. So we can see that she has more than 5 years of experience supporting corporate teams. Like I mentioned that before, the experience coordinating calendars, arranging travel, preparing reports, communicating with vendors, all these things that I mentioned earlier when I was telling you about her. But what's important is that as you look at her resume, I want you to mentally replace Brianna with yourself, because the process that we're about to go through works for almost any profession. It doesn't only work for her, it works for any profession or almost any profession. So whether you're in administration, customer service, IT, healthcare, education, or another field, this same approach will apply. And as job seekers, we often become so familiar with our own experience that we stop recognizing our strengths because it's so familiar to us. It's the things that we do all the time. It just becomes so routine to us, we don't recognize that it's a strength. And as we go through today's demo, I want you to notice that the AI will not be creating Brianna's skills. Those skills were already there. The AI will just help us identify them, organize them, and communicate them more effectively. Okay, so let's now go back to AI. Okay, and now I'm going to upload her resume. To attach files to AI, you click on this plus button here. Okay, and we're going to add a file. And what I'm going to do is upload her resume. So you can see that it's uploaded because we see it here now. And if by mistake you uploaded the wrong thing, maybe I clicked on the wrong thing, you can just press this X here and it will remove the file that you uploaded. And now I just want to say something. Remember, we were speaking earlier about ethical and responsible AI. You do want to be careful about what you upload to AI, because this is not even though you're in a private chat with Copilot here, things that you upload do get sort of consumed into Copilot. So for example, you want to think carefully before you would upload, let's say, your tax return to AI, because it does get consumed into the broader sort of corpus or knowledge base of the AI. So you want to be very careful about what you upload into AI. But your resume, you're not very concerned about, because that's something that you share with many people and companies. So that's not something that you have to be concerned about. Okay, so she uploads her resume, Brianna uploads her resume, and now we say, based on this resume, Shift Enter takes us to the next line. Identify Brianna's strongest transferable. Okay, based on this resume, so That means that Copilot is going to have to open this document and read it, identify Brianna's strongest transferable skills, explain why employers value these skills, suggest 10 job titles she should explore, and identify strengths she should emphasize when speaking with recruiters. Notice this typo I have here, and also notice I'm very lazy and I'm not capitalizing anything. AI is usually pretty forgiving, quite forgiving about things like typos or this sloppy way that I type. It's very forgiving about these things. You don't have to go around and make sure that everything is typed perfectly. It usually figures out what you're trying to say. So let's see what it gives us. So one thing that's very helpful about this use case is that, so it's finding the transferable skills, telling us why employers value these skills, job titles she should explore, and the strengths. It helps identify her strengths that she should emphasize. So what's useful about this is that it shifts our attention away from job titles and towards skills. And many job seekers, when we're looking for a job, we focus on the exact job title that we currently have and the ones we've had in the past. But employers are often hiring for someone's skills and capabilities. For example, Brianna's current title is administrative assistant. But when we look more closely at her resume and at her experience, we see skills like organization, communication, scheduling, coordinating, customer service. And these skills can be very valuable across many industries and many different types of roles. And AI can help us identify strengths that we ourselves may overlook because they just feel routine to us, as I mentioned earlier. And often the things that we do every day, we just underestimate those skills. But this can be especially valuable for people who are changing careers or returning to the workforce after being away or transitioning industries or just trying to understand how their experience transfers to a new opportunity. So before we can position ourselves effectively, we need to understand the value that we already bring. And that's exactly what we're doing here in this exercise that we just did. So now let's imagine that Brianna found a job, a posting that was interesting to her. And the next step is to understand what the employer in that job posting is actually looking for. So let's do that now. So before I ask AI to analyze the job posting that Brianna found, let's quickly look at it together. So this is the job posting that she found. And again, don't worry about reading every word. I just want you to get a general sense of what this employer is looking for. And at a high level, the employer is looking for someone who can manage calendars, schedule meetings, prepare reports, maintain a filing system, coordinate travel, provide customer service. Those are some of the major responsibilities listed in the posting. Notice we're not trying to memorize the job description. We simply want to understand what the employer appears to value. And this is an example of how AI can help a job seeker understand a role more quickly and more systematically. Once you understand what an employer is looking for, it becomes easier for you to evaluate how your experience aligns with the role. Before we touch Brianna's resume, let's ask AI to help us analyze this job description in a more structured way. So we'll go back to AI now. And we're going to upload, again, to upload the job description, we press on the plus. That's how we attach files. We're going to upload the job description. Again, if you realize that you attached the wrong file, you would just press on this X here and you see you can remove it. And now we're going to tell it, analyze the job description. Shift Enter moves us to another line. Identify top responsibilities. So analyze this job description, identify top responsibilities, most important skills, keywords likely to be important, required qualifications, and what would make a candidate stand out. By the way, you don't have to be going to the next line, doing a line return. I'm just doing it so it looks neat, but AI doesn't require that. This could also be one long line of text that you're inputting to the AI. Let's see what answer we get. And you can either use this arrow or you can just hit enter, and that would also. So here's our output. And we see it's giving us top responsibility, most important skills, the keywords that you may want to have on your resume, the required qualifications, and importantly, what would make a candidate stand out. So this illustrates a step that AI can support very effectively. And look what it tells us at the end. If you want, I can now rewrite the entire resume to match the job description, create a tailored cover letter. So AI often does that at the end. It then says, what do you want me to do next? And it suggests a direction that you may want to take next. It often does that at the end, but it's saying, do you want me to rewrite your whole resume? Anyway, this illustrates a step that AI can do very effectively. So before tailoring a resume, preparing for an interview, or developing a network strategy, AI can help identify the key elements of a job posting. And notice what we've done here in less than a minute. So just by typing that prompt in, and in like 15 seconds, we identified the skills the employer values most, and the responsibilities that appear most important, and the keywords that would be useful to have, and the qualifications that the employer is looking for, and the characteristics that the job seeker, that the applicant should have. And this gives us some important guidelines for how it may be useful to proceed. Don't start with your resume. Start by understanding the job. So at this point, now with what we've done until now, we understand Brianna's experience, because that's the first thing that we did. And we understand what the employer is looking for, because that's what we did just now. And now we can bring those two pieces together. So let's now see how Brianna's experience compares with what Bluegrass Medical Group is looking for. So what we want to do is we want to compare her resume with this job description. So let's ask Copilot to do that for us. Compare Brianna's resume to this job description. Provide. So we could just say that, but let's be more specific with what output we want. Provide areas of alignment. Missing keywords. So now I'm being very specific with what I want Copilot to tell me, rather than just saying compare it and sort of leaving it open with what it will give me. So I want it to give me areas of alignment, missing keywords, potential gaps, strengths she should emphasize, and recommendations for improving her resume. Okay, so I want the areas where it's aligned, missing keywords, gaps, strengths she should emphasize, and recommendations for improving her resume. Let's see what we get back. Here's a sharp recruiter ready comparison of her resume to the job description that she was interested in. And it's telling us where she has alignment, in what areas there's alignment between her resume and the job posting, keywords that she's missing, potential gaps, strengths she should emphasize, and areas that she should potentially improve her resume. So this is very practical use of AI for job seekers. Because many people wonder, does my resume actually match this job? And AI can help you answer that question. Notice that it's identifying the strengths, the gaps, the keywords, opportunities to improve alignment. And now, this doesn't mean that we just blindly follow every recommendation that we get as the output from AI. Because remember that AI provides suggestions, but we, as the users and the applicants, the job applicants, are the ones who have to make the final decision. And this brings us back to one of the important principles that we mentioned earlier. AI is just a tool, but the human judgment is essential. And the goal is not to let AI decide whether or not Brianna should apply. The goal is to help Brianna better understand how she compares to the role and how she may strengthen her application for this job. So something always to keep in mind when we're using AI. So far we've used AI to understand Brianna's experience, and we've used AI to understand the job, and we've used AI to compare the two. Now let's see how AI can help improve the way Brianna presents her experience. At this point, we're not going to change her experience because her experience cannot change. It is what it is. But we're looking for ways to communicate her experience more clearly and more effectively. So let's put in the following prompt to AI. Rewrite Brianna's professional summary from her resume so that it aligns more closely with this position while remaining truthful to her experience. And that's what's key. We need to remain truthful to her experience, but maybe you can just express it better so that it aligns better with the position. And here's what we get from AI. And it also, so here's what we get from AI, but it also says, if you want, I can create 3 alternative versions with different tones, more formal, more energetic, more patient-focused, which I always like because it gives you different versions. We can just see what it gives us. Give me 3 alternative versions. I always like that. It gives you these 3 versions. I always like that. And what's also nice is sometimes you can take these 3 versions and then you can sort of pick and choose from them, or sort of merge them together, or take one, take the other, merge it together. I always like that. So now what's also important is to notice that the AI isn't inventing new qualifications. It takes the qualifications that she has. It takes the information that exists and it helps us present it differently. That's what's key. The experience is still Brianna's experience, but AI is helping us think about how to communicate it more clearly in the context of this role that she's trying to apply for. Let's look at another specific example. Let's rewrite one of the bullets from her resume. Rewrite this resume bullet using stronger action verbs and clearer business impact. And we can take a bullet from her resume, this one. So this is just, again, about rewriting the resume in a way. Again, I did Shift Enter to go to the next line, and we're going to try to rewrite this bullet and see what AI gives us. And here it gave us 3 different options. Okay. And again, it's telling you, are you looking for it to be efficiency focused, leadership support focused, results driven? Okay. And again, notice the AI is not creating new experience. It's not saying she did something different, but it's working with the information that already exists. And it's helping us think about different ways to communicate that experience. The value is already in Brianna's work history, and it's just helping present that experience more clearly. Sometimes it may suggest stronger action verbs. Sometimes it may identify opportunities to make accomplishments more specific. Sometimes it may help emphasize business impact. But throughout the process, the information should remain accurate and truthful. Don't make something up. When you consider the output, I want to remind you of an important principle of working with AI. Treat AI as a first draft, not a final draft. We mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the principles of working with AI. AI can provide ideas, but you, the person who's working with this output, should review the ideas and decide what you want in your final, in your, what you want in your resume. And again, I often take the output of AI and I sort of pick and choose, or maybe rewrite the whole thing, but it gave me an idea of how to think about it. So now let's look at another technique that can be useful when working with AI. Sometimes, and I also mentioned this earlier in the session, so far we've been working with Copilot. This whole time we've been working with Copilot, but now I want to switch to ChatGPT briefly. Now, the goal is not to decide which tool is better. Is ChatGPT better or is Copilot better? Okay. My goal is instead to demonstrate that different AI systems and different AI tools sometimes provide a different perspective. Okay. So let's take this revised bullet. So we had asked AI to change this bullet and it gave us these suggestions. And I want to take one of these suggestions and I want to see what ChatGPT tells us. Okay. And again, I logged into ChatGPT also with the same, concept that I had told you earlier that it's helpful. So I want to take one of these revised bullets and see if ChatGPT gives us a different suggestion. So I'm going to tell ChatGPT, again, I'm going to give it the same context. Remember, we were saying earlier, right at the beginning, when we were talking about prompting, that you want to tell it the role and you want to give it the context. So I'm going to say, act as a recruiter. Review this resume fully. Now I'm going to give it the bullet. And you can see, identify, and now I'm going to tell it what I want it to. Identify weak wording, missing metrics, opportunities to increase impact, suggestions for improvement. And let's see what ChatGPT tells us. So we see that ChatGPT was not so impressed with what Copilot had to say. And again, as I said earlier, this is just like asking two friends, okay? It's like asking two different people. One person may notice one thing, one person may notice something else. The same thing can happen with AI tools. And using more than one AI tool can sometimes provide additional ideas, another perspective. The objective, again, is not to let either AI make the final decision. The objective is to gather information and then apply your own judgment. Okay, the skill is not simply using AI, the skill is evaluating AI. Sometimes Copilot will give you an idea that ChatGPT did not suggest. And sometimes ChatGPT will point something out that Copilot missed. And you decide what makes most sense. Okay, now let's imagine that Brianna submitted her application and is invited to an interview. Okay, and I think I'm going to try to move a little quickly because we're running out of time. Maybe that's why Brittany popped up to say, move more quickly. We're going to go to Copilot, okay? And I want to move on to the interview preparation, okay? So AI can be helpful in preparing for an interview. A lot of people have strong experience and accomplishments, but when you're put on the spot during an interview, it can be difficult to quickly organize your experience into clear answers. And AI can help you identify potential interview questions and help you organize experience that may be relevant. Okay, so let's work on that. Act as a hiring manager for Bluegrass Medical Group. Using Brianna's resume and job description, Create 10 most likely interview questions and explain why each question is most likely to be asked. Let's see what we get. So it's giving us 10 questions, and we see all the questions it's giving us. Notice that it's not just giving us a list of possible questions, it's also explaining why those questions may be asked. And this helps us think about the interview from the employer's perspective rather than just from the candidate's perspective. For example, if the employer asks a question about managing competing priorities, they may be trying to understand how the candidate handles multiple responsibilities at the same time. And if they ask about communication, they may be trying to assess how the candidate interacts with executives and customers and patients and colleagues. So whether these end up being the exact questions or not is not really the point. The value is that AI is helping us think about what the employer is likely trying to learn during the interview. Now let's take the next step and ask AI to help organize responses. Help Brianna develop clear interview responses to these questions. And we'll see. Now notice, I want you to notice that the AI is taking information from Brianna's experience and helping to organize it into interview-ready responses. One challenge that many of us face during an interview is that we know our experience very well, but it can be difficult to quickly organize that experience into a clear response when we're put on the spot. And AI can help identify that relevant examples and organize them in a way that can be easier to communicate during an interview. Now, the goal is not to memorize these answers word for word. It would also probably sound ridiculous when you're being interviewed, but the value is that AI can help us think through our experience before an interview and help identify examples that may be relevant. So this is another example of something that we've seen throughout today's session. AI is not creating the experience. The experience already belongs to the person, but AI is helping organize and communicate that experience more clearly. So if someone wants additional practice, AI can also simulate an interview, and I'll just show you that quickly. You just say, act as an interviewer. Ask me questions one at a time. After each question, evaluate, clarity, confidence, relevance, impact, and they'll start asking you a question. I also want to point out one thing here. You can speak into AI with this, and that way you can really simulate an interview because you can speak your responses. I'm not going to do that now, but you can turn on speaking. Just turned it off, but that's another thing. You can really simulate your interview. Okay, let's go on to one more thing here. So interviews are one part of the job search, but we'll just go on to one more thing now because we're running out of time. Building professional connections is another important thing in searching for a job. A lot of opportunities begin with conversations. AI can help you draft outreach messages and help people think about how they want to introduce themselves professionally. So let's try this now. Right. Oops. Write a LinkedIn message from Brianna to someone who works in bluegrass medical group. Like, so write LinkedIn message from Brianna to someone who works in Bluegrass Medical Group. She would like to learn more about the company and the role. The message should be professional and friendly and brief. And we see it gives you a message. Okay. Notice the message is professional, concise, and focused on learning more about the company and the role. One challenge many people face when networking is simply figuring out how to start the conversation. But AI can help you by drafting the starting point. This doesn't mean that you should copy this message and just send it out. You may want to personalize it. You may want to reference something about the specific person or their background, something you saw on LinkedIn. But it's a good example of how AI can help overcome that challenge of just getting started. Okay, now let's look at something else that comes up. Sometimes you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, but they don't respond and you don't know how to follow up. So let's put that prompt into Copilot. Create a follow-up message if there is no response after 1 week. And notice that typo, which I'm leaving purposely because AI is pretty forgiving. Okay. So following up is something many people feel uncomfortable doing, and people wonder, should I reach out again or what should I say? But AI can help you draft a professional follow-up message that's respectful and concise. And notice that the tone remains professional. The goal isn't to pressure the person. The goal is simply to reconnect and continue the conversation if they're interested. And this is another example of AI helping with communication. AI can draft the message, but you still want to decide whether to send it and how to personalize it and how to manage the relationship. So throughout today's session, we've seen AI help with understanding skills, analyzing job descriptions, improving resumes, preparing for interviews. And now we've seen how it can also help with professional communication. I'm going to stop here, okay? And let me just leave you with 4 ideas. First, AI is a tool, but human judgment is still essential. Second, better prompts produce better results. Third, treat AI output as a first draft, not as a final draft. And fourth, AI should only support you, but you need to make the final decisions. And those ideas apply whether you're using Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or any other AI platform. And Brittany, I'll pass it back to you now.
Wow. Let me just say, when you said I came on the screen so that you knew it was time for you to wrap it up, didn't nobody come to see Brittany. They came to see you. You're the star of today. Thank you so much for joining us, Eliza. I know everyone here is walking away with something concrete to implement. I really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us today. I want to leave you with one action item for this week. I want you to pick one place in your job search and try an AI prompt to improve it. Your resume, your LinkedIn headline, your answer to tell me about yourself. Just one. This is how momentum starts. For our IBM Skills Build learners, Jess is dropping the activity completion link in the chat right now. Make sure you mark today's session complete. I repeat, make sure you mark today's session as complete. We will be sending a post-event email with the recording, all resources, and a link to our post-event survey. Make sure to follow us on socials and check out careercircle.com/events for upcoming workshops, virtual career fairs, and networking events. We would love to see you again. Thank you so much for being here today. Take care, and we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.